Property disclosures, the real estate professional's guide to reducing risk. Page 26. Chapter 3, continued. Lead poisoning and its effects. Lead poisoning is an illness resulting from excess lead in the body. Lead poisoning can affect both children and adults, and can affect virtually every body system. Lead-based paint is the most common cause of lead poisoning in children. The major sources of lead exposure for children include paint, dust, and soil. Lead can enter the body by swallowing or breathing lead dust, or by eating contaminated soil or paint chips. The soil around homes may be contaminated from exterior paint or from past use of leaded gasoline in cars. Lead poisoning in children is especially hazardous because children's growing bodies absorb more lead, and children's brains and nervous systems are more sensitive to the damaging effects of lead. Children between the ages of 18 months and 6 years are the most susceptible. Hand-to-mouth behavior is common with this age group. In the United States, about 900,000 children aged 1 to 5 have a blood lead level above the level of concern. The best way to determine if a child has high levels of lead in the blood is to do a blood test. A lead level less than 10 micrograms of lead per deciliter of blood is not considered to be evidence of lead poisoning. Another way to determine the presence of lead is to test hair samples. Toxic signs of lead poisoning include stomach aches, loss of appetite, headaches, and tiredness. Some children exhibit no symptoms at all. Lead exposure can cause serious health problems, including damage to the brain and nervous system, behavior and learning problems, slowed growth, hearing problems, headaches, coma, convulsions, and death. Adults experience symptoms of lead poisoning similar to those in children. Lead in drinking water is thought to contribute to high blood pressure in men. Memory problems, sleep disturbances, and loss of sex drive can also result from lead poisoning. Digestive problems, muscle and joint pain, and nerve disorders have also been associated with lead poisoning. Pregnant women are at risk because stored lead can be released from their bones and transported to the fetus. Babies born to mothers with higher lead levels are more likely to be born premature and have lower birth weights. Brief history of lead and its many uses. Lead is one of the world's oldest metals and has been used for thousands of years. For example, folk remedies such as Azarcon, and Greta, which contain lead, have been used in Mexico to prevent upset stomach. The largest single use is in lead acid storage batteries. Tetraethyl lead used to produce gasoline represents the second largest use. Page 27. Lead paint is used on bridges and other steel structures to prevent corrosion. Some hobbies use lead, such as making pottery and stained glass and refinishing furniture. Lead pipes were common in the 1930s. In 1986, the Safe Drinking Water Act required the use of lead-free solder in public water systems. And in 1988, Congress banned use of lead solder in homes and buildings. Efforts to restrict uses of lead. In 1896, Australian physicians Turner and Gibson began a 20-year study focusing on the health effects from lead poisoning. The physicians discovered a common thread in children being treated in hospitals for a variety of ailments: high levels of lead in their blood. There have been several attempts over the years to restrict the uses of lead. In 1922, lead-based paint was outlawed in Australia, Chile, and Peru. Efforts to ban lead-based paint in the United States were unsuccessful. In 1923, leaded gasoline was introduced in the United States. Between 1978 and 1980, lead in gasoline was restricted to a half a gram per gallon. In 1978, the Consumer Products Safety Commission banned the manufacture of lead-based paint containing more than 0.06% by weight for residential properties. Key definitions. The following terms are important in any discussion of lead-based paint disclosure. Agent. Any party who enters into a contract with a seller or lessor or a representative of a seller or lessor for the purpose of selling or leasing target housing. Housing for the elderly. Retirement communities or similar housing. One or more persons must be 62 or older at the time of initial occupancy. Lead-based paint. Paint that contains lead in excess of 1.0 milligram per square centimeter. Lead-based paint hazard. Any condition that causes exposure to lead from lead-contaminated dust, soil, or paint that could result in adverse health effects. Risk assessment. On-site investigation to determine and report the existence, nature, severity, and location of lead-based paint hazards in residential dwellings. Target housing. Housing constructed prior to 1978, except zero-bedroom dwellings and housing for the elderly or persons with disabilities, unless any child younger than 6 resides in such housing. Zero-bedroom dwelling. Dwelling in which the living area is not separated from the sleeping area. Summary of housing not covered by the Act. Certain housing is not covered by the Lead-Based Paint Hazard Reduction Act of 1992. The list includes housing built after 1977, zero-bedroom units such as efficiencies, lofts, and dormitories.